Welcome back. Join us today to embrace the raw, the beautiful, and the deeply sacred journey of birth infused with love, soul connection, and moments of pure magic. Today, my guest is going to explore the power, pleasure, and transcendence that makes birth an unforgettable rite of passage. This is your invitation to connect to the soul of your unborn child and to kickstart your magical birth journey. Hi, I'm Debra Pascali-Bonaro, founder and director of OrgasmicBirth and host of the OrgasmicBirth podcast. I am deeply honored to introduce you to someone that's been a friend, a colleague. Robyn Sheldon is a compassionate guide who helps others journey into the depth of their being with trust and grace. Rooted in her connection to the universal flow of love, she creates a safe space for transformation, honoring each soul's innate wisdom. As the author of the Mama Bamba Way and My Magical Birth Journey, Robyn inspires parents to embrace the sacred dance of life, birth, and connection. With a profound integrity and gentle clarity, she teaches that true guidance comes from listening deeply. Through her words, art, and presence, Robyn lights a path for others to discover their truest essence, to live with purpose, and to harness wisdom from their unborn babies. And I have to add that just recently, Robyn, you guided me on an unbelievably deep soul journey that was really transformative. So I know to all our guests listening, you're in for a treat. And Robyn, I am so honored that you're joining us today.
Thank you so much, Debra. It's so lovely to be with you always. I just love your wonderful smiling face. It always just makes me happy to see you.
Oh, well, thank you. And I know in all these conversations, right, we kind of go back to where so much of our learning and wisdom and real passion was born in our own experience with birth. Can you take us back and share a little bit about that birth experience and journey for you?
So, my experience with my own births of my children was quite fairly medical, although they were born vaginally and so on. And I kind of progressed to eventually a natural birth center, but that was as far as that goes. It was way back in, in the deep, dark kind of history of time. And however, at the time, I was also doing a fair amount of hospice work, and it was so apparent to me that this kind of sense of where we go when we're birthing children is so incredibly similar to the place that people go to when they're leaving their bodies as well. There's almost like this quality of presence that where everything superficial falls away, and kind of the veils of illusion that we are this kind of separate being in this body, they all fall away as well. And that was my experience even in my hospital births, and certainly it's been my experience working with other people and so on as well, that it's an opportunity for us to find a deeper soul presence as women that isn't really available at many other times. We might kind of follow a sort of a spiritual path of deep meditation or some kind, other paths to sort of find that transcendent space. I don't know, medicine journeys or something, but birth actually has the potential to take us into places where we can really understand who we are on a very deep level through love and through connection to the baby and through our hearts being blasted wide open, and actually possibly through the intensity of it as well.
Yeah. I love how you say that, and interesting that you came from that, hospice world too, as we talk about, right? Both sacred gateways, as
Mm,
you said, have such similarities, and
mm.
what opportunities we have to connect to that soul journey. So I know that you say a lot of times birth is never perfect, even when it's orgasmic. And no matter what birth asks of us, it can be filled with love and that deep soul connection and be sacred. Can you really share about each of those elements a bit more?
So I think as an umbrella, before we go into each aspect of it, I do think that one of the really important uh, parts of preparing for birth and so on is to ensure that you are asking the right questions of your care providers in order to be able to birth in a place where you are supported to be able to surrender into that space of love and holding and that sacred quality. Because if it's not honored by the birth keepers, it's sometimes a little bit trickier to get there by oneself and so on. And so I do think that part of and often actually doing the soul connection work with people, connecting to the babies, you know, they don't actually mind if they have a vaginal birth or if they have a cesarean section, or that's not what they're concerned about. The babies telling the mothers what they want, but through the mouths of the mothers, I'm not telling them. The mother's telling me what the baby's saying. They always just say, we just want to be seen. We want to be seen, and we want to be honored for being these vast, wise, kind of soulful beings. And we want to come into a place that feels sacred. That's what they want. That's what they're asking for. And we want to be loved. We are so, and not just from the parents, they kind of are really asking that for that moment of arrival from the birth keepers as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
And knowing that, right? That's so beautiful the way you said it, Robin. That's a lot then to really consider who and where you give birth. And are they giving you and your baby that environment, that real being seen and heard and honored?
And I guess, because you and I really come from a doula space as well, it's this kind of recognition that that's almost like the role of the doula is to support that sacred space and to honor uh, the vast kind of power of birth somehow, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Mm.
we've lost a lot of that as so many people have so much more fear, right, around birth. And sometimes that can shut down the ability to really open up to this fullness. So I'm going to bring you back because I think, a lot of people like don't think about love and a soul connection and the sacredness of birth. So once people have that birth kind of the birth keepers around them and the environment there, how can they do this work?
So I think what I would like to do is just describe a little bit of the soul integration work that I do.
Yes.
And I initially trained, so I've been doing it for over 30 years, but I initially trained in it in a way that it was for working with anybody, not specifically with pregnant parents. And then almost like this was how I was guided through my own higher self connection and so on, to really encounter so many clients who had birth as one of the primary wounds that they were trying to kind of clear and so on. So then I trained to be a midwife so that I could help people to not help the babies coming in to not experience that kind of trauma. But actually, I just find the most profound work is the work of the soul integration and the soul connections to the unborn babies. And so, in order for me, the best way to set up uh, a, kind of an energetic or to create a space where the birth can be transcendent, as much as, of course, there are many other people like yourself, for example, who have all sorts of amazing techniques to bring people to that through, say, sexuality or something like this. For me, the one way to do it is to connect to the soul of the baby through a soul integration session, and have the baby actually, because the babies are vastly wise and so on, and have the baby show the person kind of in their body, like physically through the felt sense of the wisdom and love that this baby holds, how possible it is to stay connected to that during labor. Because then when people are, and by being connected to it in labor, I mean also the partner as well as the person who's in labor. It's like the baby is so aware that it doesn't just have one parent. It's so kind of connected to both parents, even though, you know, there's only one of them that's actually carrying the baby inside of their womb and so on. And so so then when woman in labor, and it doesn't, and again, it doesn't matter if they're having a cesarean section or having a sort of a full-on kind of transcendent experience out in under the stars or something. You know, it's always possible to, especially in between the surges, to come back to a space of kind of like just dropping into this connection with the soul of the baby, because it resonates at such a high frequency of consciousness that when we connect to it, it kind of lifts us out of that fear, out of the resistance, out of that kind of sense of, oh, this is overwhelming, I can't manage it, into this kind of place of like being this immense being ourselves, who has the power then to ride the waves of the labor in a way that is just beautiful.
Oh, and I can just feel that in my body, how
Yeah.
beautiful that is. And how, what a journey too. Like I'm thinking of people that have been blessed to have your support in this preparation. And then as a midwife to really hold that space for them to do this deep sacred work. That's amazing. So what else can you talk about in that, like you're talking about this magical transcendent experience, right? How can more people tap into that? Can you give us some other examples of people that are listening today that are pregnant or planning a pregnancy who are like, I want that?
Mhm. So, you know, apart from actually doing a session with me or a session with somebody else who does similar work, I do think that one of the most important kind of aspects of preparation for birth, as well as asking the right questions of the birth keepers, is to really recognize some of the things that we're holding on to that keep us in a constricted kind of space, and to hold those very gently, with enormous tenderness, with a huge amount of compassion, and allow. That's what I mean about the imperfection. Is it's not about kind of being this amazing, perfect birthing person, because always there's going to be stuff coming up, and then it's like, do we have the capacity to be present to ourselves when we're not performing as well as we feel we should, or something like that. And so it's almost like, for me, the most powerful way to get into a space of total surrender in birth is to allow the stuff that is difficult, and just kind of fall into that and embrace ourselves for not coping with it, and find our support people and demand their kind of help when when it all feels a bit overwhelming ourselves. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to take you deeper too. And you and I kind of share this kind of approach with birth being more than is talked about a lot and requires this deep preparation to fully experience that transcendence. And where I kind of talk about that connection to our sexuality, you also talk about it in spirituality, in sacred. Can you talk about how those two kind of come together and how people
Oh, I
can
just love
prepare?
it so much. It's kind of like what I love about it is this kind of sense that we have within our kind of monotheistic uh, cultures and so on, that sexuality is over there and spirituality is over there. And then, of course, once we start connecting with the sacred feminine, who is connected to the earth and to what's messy and to everything that is kind of like chaotic, and to loving chocolate more than you kind of should, and whatever, and sexuality and all of that sort of stuff. There's this there's this kind of recognition that actually the power of sexuality is the power of the Kundalini, which for years people have been working, thousands of years, to bring it up into a space of kind of enlightened, awakened enlightenment and so on. But in fact, these days, there's almost like a shift in the consciousness of the world where we're required to bring that awakened self down into our physical beings, into our sexuality. There's a kind of, instead of a raising up towards the spiritual, it's a thing of bringing the spiritual down into the sexual and merging them and kind of honoring both of them and thinking how extraordinarily powerful each of them are, and how birth is really a place to engage with that power in a way that is, yeah, is totally kind of transformative.
Yeah, I love it. And do you have any recommendations? How can people begin to take that journey when they're pregnant of merging that and moving that energy?
Um, well, uh, they can do meditations with me. I mean, I'm sure.
Yes.
Um, oh gosh, Deborah. I'm sure that there's so many different spaces that one can do this in. You know what I think? I don't think that breath journeys are necessarily something that is okay to do when you're pregnant, but there is this kind of sense of uh, looking for a quality of spirituality that is very connected to Mother Earth, and there are many different uh, ways to. There are many different offerings in that space, I guess, and so
Yeah.
any of them would definitely be promoting something similar, I would imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. So, what would be, and I know you do so much work and help people prepare in so many ways, what would be one last tip you would want to share with people that might be pregnant today or preparing for a pregnancy for them to integrate as they prepare to welcome this new soul and spirit into their life?
You know, I think as you ask that question, what comes to mind for me is like we live such incredibly busy, distracted lives at the moment. And for me, the way that I find my center best is to get out into nature and to not only be in nature, but to kind of really drop into this, like feel into the pulse and the rhythm of the earth. It's slow and it's ancient and it's wise, and it's just like, and just be in that and kind of find one sense of connecting, rooting through kind of bare feet into the earth in a space that there's something about the quality of the earth that is incredibly maternal and that can give us a kind of a recognition of how to intuitively just birth in a way that is giving ourselves almost to her. You know, that kind of sense of, she knows, she really knows how to do this. And so if we connect to her wisdom and her incredible, very, very deep love, and that's easy. Anyone can do that. You know, just go and hug a tree. I mean,
I
that's
love that.
ocean. Yeah.
And I have to say to all the people listening, the way that you integrate this wisdom, now that we have a visual even of hugging a tree, I'd love for people to flood us with pictures of how do you connect with Mother Earth, you know? How are you really supporting yourself to be in touch with your own deep wisdom within and to connect to that baby soul? So, Robyn, you have given us so much wisdom to consider. I know people would love to hear, how can they connect with you? Can you share a bit about your programs and your links and websites?
Right. Well, thank you. So, I mean, I've just, as you know, Deborah, recently moved to the UK, and I'm busy kind of setting up here. I do see people in person in Somerset in the UK where I am, and I do a lot of my work online. A session normally takes 3 hours, so it's quite a deep kind of process and so on. Or you can even do a set of sessions, which is 3 of those or 4 of those 3-hour sessions. And then because it's often something that not a lot of people have a huge amount of experience with, I also do offer a 15 to 20 minute just free chat with anybody who's interested, you know, just to connect and kind of find out a little bit more about it and ask any questions that they have and so on. Yeah.
Well, the free session is such a gift too, to just get more of an intro. And then, as I said at the beginning, the full session is definitely something I would recommend to everyone. We all have more to uncover and to heal and to expand and vision into. So, how do people reach you? Do you want to share the best way?
So my website is robynsheldon.com. And Robyn is with a Y, robynsheldon.com. And so the easiest way, I guess, is just to go to the contact form on my website and reach out to me through that. You know, I could share all sorts of different ways, but let's keep it simple, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
simple is best. Well, we will put that all in the show notes. And for everyone, just look below wherever you're listening to our podcast and you can get all of Robyn's links. And again, Robyn, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and joining us today.
So very lovely to spend time with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you to all our listeners. We so appreciate you. We hope you'll join us next week for the next episode of the Orgasmic Birth Podcast.